Hi guys, welcome to Bearded and Broke. Anyway, let's talk about Formula One. Yay!
That was the start. So, as James introduced us, we are going to
Yes.
be talking about Formula One this week.
Yeah.
We
So
are
go on, finish.
we are aware there's more and more sports coming back in, but we thought this week would be a little bit more appropriate to do the Formula One, as it was two British Grand Prix, and the following week we'll be talking about a more broad aspect of sports coming back. So, this week we'll refer back to the British Grand Prix as the first Grand Prix in Britain, and then the 70th anniversary as the second weekend
Yeah.
at it, which, without spoiling things too much, it wasn't the normal Lewis Hamilton winner. So
I know, right? That's weird.
crazy. I mean, it's crazy he didn't he almost lost it in the first one with how it ended, but I think these two Grand Prix that we had in the last 2 weeks have actually been wholly entertaining for the whole races. And as we've discussed before, I'm not a guy to sit there for however many hours of watching the Grand Prix. I'd rather watch the highlights and know what's going on. And I wouldn't want to spend 3 hours of my weekend watching Formula One. Let's just say that. I'd rather spend 15, 20 minutes catching up on it. So having watched the first Grand Prix, I'm going to cut straight to the chase. How did Lewis Hamilton finish on three tyres?
Mate, it was so close because it burst just as he was starting his final lap. And you had Verstappen, who, if Verstappen hadn't pitted, he would have easily overtaken Hamilton and won. And, they obviously couldn't tell that at the time, Red Bull, when they made that decision. They were doing it in order to get the fastest lap. Because basically, once you get the fastest lap, you get an extra championship point. So they clearly did that with the intention of Max gaining the extra point whilst also holding on to second place. Because the gap to third was so massive at that point that they could afford to take that risk. Well, it wasn't really a risk. They could afford to just do it, and it wouldn't affect them. And I still
Before you
have no clue
continue,
how
sorry,
they did it.
I'm going to interrupt you there.
Yeah, go
Do
on.
you know what the gap was before they started their final lap?
I actually don't, off the top of my head.
Because I feel like it was closer to 30 seconds.
Right. You only
They
need
finished
about
with
you only need a gap of about 20 seconds when you pit at Silverstone, and that's with a good pit stop, when the crew are on it. So 30 seconds still wouldn't have really eaten. He would have been fine unless Red Bull massively cocked that up, which you wouldn't expect them to do, obviously. But you can see,
Yeah, they ended the race. So I think there was just under 6 seconds with their difference. So the gap there, he closed off 25 odd seconds in one race and one lap, and of course with three tyres, Lewis Hamilton was just trying to finish, really, wasn't he? Let alone finish first. He was just trying to finish.
Yeah, and you look at Lewis's reaction after he got out of the car. He was inspecting the tyre like, how the hell did I do this?
Yeah.
How did we manage to finish that? And it was really tense. I think I watched it live. I watched the last 2 weekends live because I thought, well, we're going to talk about it, so I might as well watch it live. And first of all, really entertained throughout. The commentary is excellent, and I was, there wasn't really a moment where I was bored of it. I was watching it the whole time, which I don't normally do. And that last lap, you could constantly see Verstappen just gaining seconds and seconds and seconds back, which just never happens.
Had the race been, I don't want to say 500 meters longer, because I think that's a very small margin in Formula One, but had it been,
Another lap or two,
not even another lap, I think probably about a fifth of a lap more, he would have been on it, because Lewis Hamilton's tyre would have been worse, getting worse and worse and worse. And then Verstappen was just adamant to catch up on him. And his team were on the mic in his ear saying, just fucking keep on it, keep your foot down. And the team telling Hamilton's just try and finish.
Exactly, yeah. I remember there was a really funny quote. It was Max was going to his mechanic. He was saying, "Oh, can I catch him?" And the mechanic goes, "Yeah, if you hurry up." He's like, "Yeah, no shit."
Yeah, I mean, both weekends were really good, and as I already said, I wouldn't usually watch the whole race, but I thoroughly enjoyed both of them because, of course, the 70th anniversary race,
Mm.
um, that was very tense for the whole 52 laps. I think it was like the 25th, 27th lap, right bang in the middle, where Hamilton and Verstappen and Bottas were right neck to neck on each other, and the leader was consistently changing between those three.
Mm.
And of course, Verstappen took the lead a little bit later on as the race went on, but Bottas was ahead of Hamilton, and then they were both racing for second place, and it was just great to see something different. I think that's what I enjoyed, not Hamilton being like 30 seconds ahead and then there's not really a race. It's just Hamilton being in front.
Exactly. It's nice to see Mercedes being pushed for once and see them actually struggling, because they were really struggling to figure out the tyres in this heat. They didn't know. They basically, I was listening to the Christian Horner interview after the race, and they were being asked why Red Bull were doing so well and why Mercedes struggled a lot with this heat, with the heat and the tyres management. And they have the theory that, Mercedes car produces more downforce than the Red Bull or the Ferrari cars, which supposedly would obviously mean that there would be more stress on the tyres, which is why Mercedes tyres were blistering. And that seems to make sense, and why they were wearing quicker and why they had to do more stops and things. But yeah, like I don't want to cut to the one that was today. I want to stay talking about the first one. The person I feel kind of bad for is Sebastian Vettel, because you've got his teammate Charles Leclerc, who finished on the podium last week, and this week he was fourth on a one-stop strategy, and Vettel, I don't think, even scored a point. It looks to me like he's being shafted by Ferrari a little bit.
I mean, he is, isn't he? Because he has already said that he's leaving the team, so he's just collecting his paycheck now. He doesn't care.
Millions. So he's like, yeah. Well,
exactly. His paycheck is a lot of money, and that's besides the point of what I'm trying to make. All I'm trying to say is when he's coming to the end of his career as well. I mean, you just don't know with. He's won the championship however many times with Red Bull, but he moved on to bigger and better things, quote unquote, at Ferrari. And of course, it didn't go his way that way in that team. And now he's going to be replaced next season, and he hasn't got a place in that team. So why should he try? Surely Formula One, it's not like football where you've got to continue trying to impress. If you've already been there in Formula One, people will take you on, like Ricciardo coming onto McLaren next season. He hasn't done really well at Renault, but McLaren still chased after him and got him. So yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in Formula One, it's a bit different to other sports where you've got to continue performing and continue being professional, because he's probably still being professional. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's pissing about, turning up drunk or whatnot, but that desire to get a podium place, to get those bonuses, has gone a little bit, where his motivation isn't to go and win anymore. It's just to finish this season and find another seat in another team.
Exactly. And they're talking about him potentially going to, because Racing Point's going to change and now become Aston Martin Racing.
Yeah.
So they're talking about him going there, maybe even, and this is a complete long shot, they're talking about him potentially replacing Hamilton at Mercedes. That's probably not going to happen. They're way more likely to just renew Hamilton's contract.
Yeah, I can't see Mercedes turning down Hamilton when he's going to become the record holder after this year.
If he wins.
There's not really much of an if there, is there? He's already 70 points ahead.
He's got a big lead, but if a few things go the wrong way for him and Verstappen's coming back, I think it could potentially go that way.
It'll be interesting to see, because I don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against Hamilton, but I just think it's gotten to the point now where enough's enough. I'm not about dominances. I like things being a bit different every so often. So there's a lot of potential coming up at the moment in Formula One, as the viewers or listeners probably know with Albon and Verstappen, and they're really young guys that are in their really early 20s. So the potential for them to go and be the big Hamilton type drivers that they're going to be dominating is going to be I feel is rarer of a chance because there is more competition. So I think we are going to be heading towards more competition, and meaning there's going to be less dominance of maybe not teams so much, but definitely drivers, where there's going to be different drivers, or at least I hope, because teams can, at the end of the day, like they make a preference on Hamilton over Bottas for someone to take the lead or whatnot. But again, it's not the topic of the conversation. So all I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of potential coming in, hopefully within the next 3 or 4 years. I can't see Hamilton staying there for that long, to be honest. He's getting on a bit now, isn't he?
Exactly. And after the rule changes come in next year and we see the after effects of that, 2 years after those rule changes come in, I think he will have retired by then. By 2 years, so 22, end of the 22 season, I reckon Hamilton will be done with Formula One.
Yeah, I think it would be great for him though, wouldn't it? He would have made his name, and in that way, when Mercedes can't spend as much as they do now, he won't be running his chances with. I don't want to say a worse team, because they're not going to be worse as such. They're still going to be developing, but maybe not developing as quickly as they can with uncapped investment into their team.
Yeah, he's not going to do a Kimi Räikkönen and go to the back of the grid and just hang about there.
No, he's staying safe. Let him hang about there.
He's hanging about collecting his paycheck before he can piss off back to Finland.
Exactly. You need a bit more money. Finland's quite expensive. He's doing the right thing.
Exactly. But you do kind of feel bad for him, because like 2 years ago he was at Ferrari challenging for podiums and things, and now here he is.
It wasn't 2 years ago, was it? That can't be that quick. Time flies by when you're having fun. I'll tell you that, James. Jeez.
Not when you're Kimi.
Not when you're Kimi. When you're Kimi, you're just a robot who hates life.
Unless you give him vodka.
Yeah, he'll probably like...
The Finns like a drink.
Yeah, he'll probably like... What's the Finnish drink? Is it...
Yeah, it's salmiakki. It's that black vodka that I once got really, really drunk on, and just... Oh, God. I know that some of the worst times I've been drunk have been with you, Dan, but that salmiakki night was I think the worst I've ever been in my life. But
I will ask you that after we stop recording.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we'll do that in another podcast at least.
I said, absolutely, that is a good podcast topic for another time. But I wanted to ask you this earlier. Yeah. Do you think it was a mistake for Vettel to leave Red Bull when he did?
I think at the time, Red Bull had a lot of dominance, didn't they? He won, was it 3 championships with them? It was a lot going on, 4. So I can't really say it was wrong, because you don't know what would have happened had he stayed. Verstappen may not have been in the shoes that he is now. You just don't know. So all I'm going to say is, he's done that to try and become a bigger player when he didn't need to. When he won 4 championships, nothing was wrong. Everything was going right, in my opinion. When you win a championship, what more can you do? Why would you leave to go to another team? Unless there was some politics in the team, I don't know what the reason would have been. But this gives you the answer. I hope you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this earlier, right? So you look back at it at the time, and that 2014 season, he didn't win it. It was won by Hamilton. And that was the first year of Mercedes dominance. And Vettel was being pushed by Ricciardo. And Ricciardo, I'm pretty sure, beat him that season in terms of points and, podiums and things like that. So it looked as though Red Bull was kind of shaping towards being Ricciardo's team. And so you can see why in that position, Vettel would have gone, oh, well, I'm going to jump ship and go to Ferrari for a massive payday. And which, of course, he would never admit. But we know he's getting like £30 million a year. I know,
That
right?
hurts me a little bit by you saying that. That's
Exactly.
crazy.
£30 million a year to not even score points. But
Not to score points now, but he
true.
was very, very. He wasn't the top driver, but he was up there. He was up in the podium places week in, week out, wasn't he?
Yeah, and so you can't say that it's not undeserved, but you can see why he would have taken that move if Red Bull weren't offering him as much. And also, um, Ferrari were on the up and up as well, because they had a little slump in the early 2010s, just like McLaren did. And in 2016, he ended up challenging the Mercedes in order to be the champion, the world champion. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do it. But that was the one chance. It was 2017. That was the one chance he had to become a world champion with Ferrari. And since then, it hasn't worked out. And they've brought in Charles Leclerc, and they're doing that. That it's become a trend now in Formula One to hedge their bets with really young talents, like with Verstappen, and which they're now doing with Charles Leclerc as well. And
Yeah,
it's very evident that the car's being designed around Leclerc, and Vettel's just an afterthought.
and I guess any team sport is like that, where you have a team and they build a team around. Like in football, if a manager has a preference over a player, he'll build a team around that player. It's maybe not as easily seen because there's more players around, and there's more competition going on in football. But in Formula One, you've got two drivers, and it's very easily seen where a team has a preference over one. And I think that's the really sad aspect of things, because like you said, if that team looked like Ricciardo's team rather than Vettel, it's from a management point of view, or the team principal, however you want to call them, the management of the whole team, where they're going away from someone who's brought them so much success. It's the same with Chicago Bulls in the late 90s, where the owners went, oh, actually, let's start changing things up. Well, yeah, I see what you're doing. You're trying to plan for the future, which is fair enough. You've got to do that in an integrated way. I would probably suggest, more so than ship out your best player who's actually won every single championship for you.
Yeah.
But I'm going away from the point a little bit. So Vettel won the championship for them for 4 times, and they started planning for the future, with young Ricciardo being their main driver coming in. And shipping him out has cost Red Bull, because they haven't really been up there. Mercedes have been dominant since then. And also they have had a gap of, about 6-7 years where they've had to bring in a young driver like Verstappen now, who's coming through, and he's really challenging for the spot. So they've had to wait for so long. And I feel like a senior management team in such a big team can make a very wrong decision very easily with trying to complicate things and do the right thing, quote unquote, because they jump ship on trying to bring new or young players in.
So it sounds like, so they were being a little bit optimistic with how quickly they could achieve success with young talents. But now it could potentially be paying off, because we're obviously starting to see Verstappen. He's second in the championship right now, so if all goes well in it's the Spanish Grand Prix next, which he won in his first race for Red Bull. So this is a track that he will like, and it will clearly be very competitive between him and the Mercedes. So they've got a chance there, and you've also got Albon as well, who can never seem to get it together in qualifying, but then in the race he just turns it on, and he's able to just jump up the leaderboard.
Yeah, before we move the conversation on, just bringing it back to Verstappen and coming through. At the end of the day, I'm not going to say youngsters shouldn't be given opportunities, because I think they should. But all I'm saying with this point now is that if you had Ricciardo there and you still focused on Vettel, where Vettel did bring you so much success, you would still go on and continue, in theory, continue succeeding. That way, if Ricciardo wasn't actually performing to the way that you would have liked, you'd have maybe evenly split the attention to both of them. One of them didn't start performing, then maybe it would have been time to ship one of them out and then start bringing through the likes of Verstappen. They've got reserve drivers where they could have kept Verstappen on, or they could have had whatever other ways of keeping tabs on. And I know that me saying, oh, well, he should have waited and he could have gone to another team if he would have waited. You don't know that. But all I'm saying is there's quite a lot of management, senior management, that are not really associated with the head coaches as such. They just jump ship on there. Oh, let's go for the youngsters. It'll be fine. And it's almost like, oh, crap. It's not fine. We're not doing as well. And they're like, well, shocked, really. And it's not really a shocking moment.
Yeah. And they could have had, if they'd kept Vettel and they'd still had Ricciardo, they could potentially have had something similar to Mercedes, where they had Rosberg and Hamilton both challenging for the title and being very even and it being very close between the two of them. They could have had something like that, and it would have been a top four that's just crazy and all over the place. But it didn't work out like that. But, that's just something to think about, how cool that would have been to have watched. But, yeah.
So if that answers your question, if I think Vettel has made the wrong decision, I hope that answered it.
A very roundabout sort of way. It'll be interesting to see if he even stays in Formula One next year, or whether he just retires.
I hope he does. He seems a little bit fed up with it, but I don't know. You might be out for a little bit, and then someone might get, I don't know, injured or test positive for COVID, and obviously all of a sudden he'll come back and be like, oh, he's doing great again.
Yeah.
So it might be one of those things where, as a, I was going to say pro athlete, but I don't think I can call myself as an ex-pro athlete, but up there, you fall out of love with what you do all day, every day. So maybe he just needs a little bit of a break, and that break could show him that Formula One is what he should be doing still. You just don't know. Those things can go either way, really, can't they?
Yeah, exactly. So, Albon. I tried to tease this earlier, but we'll just do it now. He can't get it together in qualifying, and then in the race, he just switches it on and just jumps up the leaderboard. Imagine how good he could be if he could actually get it together in qualifying and be at the front of the grid.
It's all part of the development. He's 20, 21, 22, something like that.
Yeah, like our sort of age.
Yeah, he has got a long way to go. And I think when he wants it, like when he's really hungry, it really comes out. He's been in races, I think it was last year, where he was like 19th or whatever, and then he really got his shit together, and all of a sudden he's 5th. And it's like, how can you do that? It's insane. And he has so much potential, where he needs to learn how to handle those nerves at the beginning, where he might be a little bit nervous. I mean, I don't know. I'm not him. But whatever's not going right, it needs to be worked on, because I think it is part of the development. You can't expect a young guy to come in and just be perfect from the beginning. I mean, you get more experienced drivers like Vettel coming in and just hanging about at the back, being safe. But
exactly.
You were going to say something. I interrupted.
Yeah. I was just going to say that the difference between him and Gasly, because he was swapped for Gasly halfway through the season last year. The main difference is that he actually goes for it. Like, you watch today, his overtake that he did on Raikkonen when he was like 16th, his wheels were on the track by like this much. It was a tiny, tiny amount, and he was able to keep it together. And Raikkonen, let him, gave him enough space to be able to do that and everything. But Gasly would never have gone for that a year ago. Gasly was very, very safe, and he was very nervy. And so I'm very quickly becoming a very big fan of Albon, because he goes for it and he's exciting to watch, and he's the kind of driver that Red Bull wants, because he's aggressive all the time. He's just
really hungry, isn't he?
Exactly. He just needs to learn to extract the that raw pace in qualifying, and then him and Verstappen can be an awesome duo together.
Yeah, I think Red Bull have, if they manage to keep both of them and continue developing both of them. I mean, Verstappen, I don't think he's far from the finished product. He's got minor things to sharpen up, and he's pretty much there. But Albon, yeah, he's got a bit more development to do, but they're both very young and they've both got a lot of potential. And I really, really am looking forward to this Red Bull, Aston Martin team, whatever you want to call them, whatever their name change is going to be, or if they're stopping using the Honda engine. It'll be great. It'll be great. And I think that you've got the likes of Gasly, who's starting to race a little bit better as well. And yeah, you've just got Leclerc as well, who's doing well at Ferrari. You've just got so much potential, which is exciting. And again, I've got nothing against the likes of Hamilton because I think he's done his fair share in Formula One. But I think it's time to start moving on now.
Yeah, it's just time to see a different face for once. Because after a while, you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake, this person again, really?
Yeah, and I'm sure it was like that with Michael Schumacher. I mean, I only got to start getting interested in Formula One when he was, coming to the end of his age. So I thought he was the best thing since sliced bread for Formula One. But having been around and enjoyed Formula One since that age, it has really been, Hamilton. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you got to give him credit for being able to stay at the top for that long.
Exactly. You had Jenson Button do it one year, and where's he gone since then?
doing Sky Sports commentary, basically. Fair play to him, though.
Well, he's gotten something out of it, hasn't he?
Exactly. He's just getting a fat paycheck every week. But
he's not sitting on a bench at Madrid and playing golf week in, week out on like more than £500,000 or euros of wages.
To be fair, that is a good way to earn a living. If you're not even playing every week and the team doesn't like you, you're just going to be like, well, I'm not leaving until you make me.
It's the biggest shithouse ever.
I know. I love it. It's brilliant. It's obviously not great from a fan perspective. I know we're digressing. We'll come back in a minute. But yeah, it just sucks that Gareth Bale can't play. Anyway, Nico Hülkenberg replaced, what was his name? Sergio Perez, because he caught COVID. And I was so sad that Hülkenberg couldn't convert on that third place in qualifying in order to actually get a podium. Because he's gone like 10 years now without getting a podium.
It's incredible, isn't it? He's done how many hundreds of races and he still can't get that podium. And I don't know, he's clearly a good enough driver to be in that, just above middle table of the race, but he's just not good enough to be the top driver. And I would hate to be in his shoes to know that he's been there for 10 years. And of course, you've got to be competitive to be a driver. But with him, it's almost like, yeah, he's competitive, but he's just not good enough. And I hate to think how that takes it on him mentally, where he knows he's going to races and no matter how much he tries, he still can't get even the third spot. I would not put myself into his shoes.
I wouldn't want to be in that position at all. You can make the argument that he has never been able to convert on those because he's never been in a decent car. But this was the first time this weekend we saw him in the 2019 Mercedes, basically, is what Racing Point are at this point. And they have a good car and they have a competitive car. And he wasn't that far and he could have converted it potentially. It's so sad to think like what could have been if he'd got a good start and he'd been able to shut Verstappen out and he'd been able to hold on to that third space through the first lap.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very, very weird to be speculating about a car that's not good enough and if it's good enough. There is a point where is it the team, is it the car, is it the person? And it all comes round to, of course, all of them coming together and all of them being good for there to be a good driver. But Hülkenberg has been in a few different teams. He hasn't just been in one team. So he has been driving different cars in different teams. And he hasn't reached a third spot in any of them. So I know you got to be lucky at some points, where, I don't know, potential leader would have had a crash or almost lost his fourth wheel. It happens. There's got to be some kind of luck, but that's sport in itself.
Yeah, it really is.
So moving on to the 70th anniversary Grand Prix,
Mm-hmm.
as I keep banging on about how I clearly hate Lewis Hamilton because I don't want him to win, we had a very different winner this time round, where Verstappen has actually won it, hasn't he?
Exactly.
And it was, like I was saying from the beginning, it was Bottas, Hamilton, and Verstappen pretty much the whole race at it. And I just enjoy that even 25 laps in, you still had them going neck to neck and overtaking each other like they've just got one more lap to go.
Yeah, honestly, it was very, very smart strategy from Red Bull, because I mentioned earlier with the whole downforce and putting stress on the tires and things. They must have been aware of that beforehand. They knew that they could handle the tires better in this heat that we've got here, better than Mercedes. And it, to be fair to Verstappen, that do you remember there was that radio call in at like after like 12 laps, and the mechanics were telling him to slow down, to preserve the tires, and he was like, "Fuck that, I'm gonna go for it," which I respect so much, because it paid off, because it pushed Mercedes to put more stress on their tires, so they had to pit earlier, and he could take the lead and push them throughout the entire race, knowing they couldn't handle it.
Had that not paid off, we would have been slagging him off,
Mm,
saying, "Why didn't you listen to the team?" So
exactly.
again, a very, very lucky
But
thing that
but
worked out for him.
a good driver, has that instinct to push and to constantly be competitive there, when other people would think more logically and think, okay, I need to step back. And to be fair, there were points in the race where he did do that, but he had that sense to recognize this is the time to go for it, and he went for it.
Yeah, you're right to a perspective, but also there's a tactical sense to, isn't there, where you got to almost not just go fully out and then your tires will pop or whatever, and pretty much happen to what almost happened to Hamilton, and you fuck up and almost lose the race. So
Exactly.
there's a balance of both of them, isn't there? There's tactics and also just go for it and just stop being a wuss.
Stop driving like a grandma, as he said. I remember like the clear example of someone not being logical and smart is Esteban Ocon, when he was driving for, I think it was Force India, and he was about to be lapped by Verstappen, and he decided to race him, and he ended up knocking Verstappen off and costing him the lead.
Mm.
And you're like, why? That was unnecessary. I know you're a racing driver, but you're being lapped.
Mm.
You should get points against you or something,
And he didn't get points, did he?
No, he didn't. But that's a clear example of when someone's just being stupid, and um, okay, you're being competitive, but not. This isn't the time for that. Verstappen knew it was the time to be competitive, and he went for it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I don't really have much to say about that.
Fair
I
enough.
think I think it comes to it's very difficult to say if it was on purpose or not in those situations, because you are in the middle of a race, but you do have competitive drivers out there, but you also have this, I don't know what you call it, fair play kind of etiquette, where you're trying to get out of the way of drivers and not push them out and all that sort of thing. And it becomes very difficult to judge what's on purpose and what's not on purpose.
Hmm.
But yeah, moving on to talking about the rest of the leaderboard, where we were talking about Albon, and he ended up finishing in 5th place in the 70th anniversary, which is respectable for someone who was just slagging off and saying he can't handle it. So he clearly knew that he couldn't handle it, and in the second weekend, he managed to put it together a little bit more.
How did he do in the qualifying yesterday?
I don't know.
All right, fair. I'm pretty sure he didn't even make it out of Q2, if I remember correctly. I know that he managed to fight his way back. He obviously managed to fight his way back to 5th, and he
Okay.
overtook Raikkonen, who was near the back of the grid. So he clearly fell back somewhere, and I remember he caused the crash. Well, he didn't cause it, but he was partly responsible for the crash with Magnussen last week, when the two of them were right at the back of the grid as well. So you can see that he was at or near the back of the grid in the beginning
Yes,
of
the
both races.
Albon out of the qualifying was actually 9th.
Right.
So
Okay.
he wasn't too bad, but then Hulkenberg was 3rd for the qualifying. which, yeah, a bit.
Where did Hulkenberg finish in the end?
That's a good question. Bear with me.
No worries. We got time.
Hulkenberg finished 7th. So it wasn't,
Right.
again, respectable place.
Respectable, yeah. I would have thought that Racing Point would have been a little higher because you've got Stroll. Stroll's done pretty well this year considering he's racing using.
Stroll was 6th and Hulkenberg was 7th. So they had a 6-7, which is respectable.
Yeah.
I think that they're the highest placed after Mercedes. So, after Red Bull and Mercedes, where Ferrari, of course, Vettel somewhere 12th. And yeah, I mean the rest are just the lower teams, if you want.
And you've probably got Red Bull, not Red Bull, Renault after Racing Point, surely.
Yeah, so you got Ocon at 8th, and you got Ricciardo at 14th.
Right. Okay. Ricciardo had a spin in the race, didn't he? Because he lost grip, and then he just ended up going off.
When doesn't Ricciardo go off? He's been going off left, right, and centre with Renault and blaming the car.
Yeah, he's been having a lot of problems with the car, hasn't he? So hopefully, one thing that I do think will be really cool next year is the fact that you've got the Ricciardo and Lando Norris partnership, and they seem to get on really well already. Like I was scrolling through Instagram last night, and Ricciardo put a selfie up saying something about where he ended up in qualifying, and Lando Norris put a comment underneath it saying, glad you finally put a good lap together. So they've got good banter already. So it looks to be shaping up like it's going to be a good team in terms of like they're competitive. McLaren is also rising rapidly. They're increasingly getting higher and higher positions. Lando Norris obviously got 3rd in. It wasn't Styrian Grand Prix. It was the Austrian Grand Prix, I think. So
it was in Austria, just depending on what race it was.
Yeah, one of them two. So, they're it's going to be good to watch them. Maybe they can change to be the 3rd best team with, if Carlos Sainz doesn't do well at Ferrari initially, then that could drag Ferrari down a little bit more.
Yeah, I think after this year, of course, we'll still have Hamilton and Bottas at Mercedes. And I think you said, 2022 will be the real start of the difference or the levelling off, I guess, of the quality of cars, where you have drivers, young drivers come up and, they might still be wanting to sign for the bigger teams. But I think after 22, when Hamilton retires and we've got a few more years with the levelling off of Red Bull getting closer, Ferrari getting closer, McLaren getting closer, Renault getting closer, I'm assuming. I don't know what their plan is. Haas getting closer. Williams hopefully still racing. And you got the Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo just hanging on. They're clinging on to their life. Them and Williams are just happy to be, finish a race.
Yeah, and I hope they're still, teams that operate in that time. They're definitely good entertainment on the Netflix documentaries.
Yeah, I need to go rewatch that. To be fair, that's quite funny to watch. Well, it's an entertaining series anyway, and it actually reignited my interest for Formula One. Because I'll be honest, ever since Rosberg won the championship, and left, I kind of lost interest in Formula One. But watching, the first season, rewatching both seasons of Drive to Survive, really got my interest in it again, and got me watching both British Grand Prix. And it's great to see as well that they're bringing in loads of new fans into the sport as well. You're seeing loads of American commentary channels now, which is great on Formula One, which you wouldn't normally see before because they struggled to crack America for ages.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
that's it was definitely entertaining. I would probably say the same thing. It's reignited my I don't know what you want to call it, my interest, enthusiasm as well for the sport, where I've actually become more engaged with it. So yeah, I think on that point where we're promoting something different off the podcast, we should be signing off and saying thanks for listening.
Yes.
Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast, and next week we'll broaden the horizon and what we're talking, not just the football and the Formula Ones like we have been in the last few weeks. So thanks for listening again, and catch you soon.
Yeah. See you again next time. Cheers.